Do you ever struggle with imposter syndrome? Yeah, that element that you're imposter, that you are not ready, that you are faking it until you make it, that you are able to or incompetent in doing the role that you've been asked to perform. And that's the imposter syndrome. I was talking to someone this morning about it, and she was struggling with it because she felt that went immediately there. She didn't fulfill an obligation, and she thought, I'm an imposter. I'm terrible. I can't do this. Who am I to think I am a leader? All this head trash that came running in. And the conversation we had really went to the fact that she is her authentic self. She shows up as a very authentic person, very real, and that is not an imposter. That is who she is. She is capable. She is confident, and she shows up that way in authenticity. And that is independent of what happens when you're in the growth learning cycle. And that's what we were talking about, because when you think you're an imposter, you're thinking you're not your authentic self, you're being somebody else. When you're going through a natural learning curve of how you're progressing and the skills that you're developing, that's totally different. And those are independent thoughts. On that learning curve, you start with unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. And as you move through the curve, you get to the second step, which is you're consciously incompetent, so you know what you don't know. And between the know what you don't know and the next level, which is conscious competence, which is where you have to work at it, where you have to focus, where you're trying to develop that skill. You have to really hone in on it, and it takes a lot of effort and focus to make sure you're executing that skill correctly. And you may be consciously incompetent and sometimes consciously competent. You kind of go back and forth as you develop that skill. And then the fourth level is unconscious competence, which means you've mastered that skill. You don't have to think about it. You can go through the motions. You naturally adapt yourself. You naturally show up that way. And that's where you get to unconscious competence. But along the way, it's natural to be in a place of conscious competence or conscious incompetence. You kind of bounce back and forth before you achieve the level of unconscious competence. And those are wildly independent of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome means you're not showing up as yourself. You're pretending to be somebody else when indeed you're just learning, and you are trying to tackle a task that you may or may not have mastered yet. But that has nothing to do with being authentic and being your authentic self and showing up that way. So go easy on yourself. The imposter syndrome is totally different. Think about it as a learning process, as a growth process, and less about being who you are and pretending to be someone you're not. PJ Weiland here, helping you get the business you deserve.